We are a people of the story, of our narratives. Our very sense of being is shaped, indeed created, from inside an unfolding drama within time. Each culture and every person finds identity as our days and nights are woven into the fabric of something larger than any one of us, more than even all of us together. For this story was first envisioned before time, in the eons of the love of three persons whose intimate relation makes them one in essential nature. Though born inside the imagination of the Trinity of God, our story breaks into time within the human hunger to know, beginnings and endings, meaning and purpose. It is the story of God made flesh, and of us knowing the divine. The Jesus story, told and retold, is the narrative that is worship. From before time, God has always wanted holy and loving fellowship with all of creation, especially we who are human. In my published book, The Advent of God Through Mary, we trace how that story becomes real and personal in Jesus of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem. And we look at the unfolding of God's advent in the earth through this young Jewish and Virgin Mother, through her eyes and her experiences in the context of her culture. In my new book entitled Who Am I? From Galilee to Jerusalem, you and I will be taking a Lenten journey with Jesus and the 12. It begins at a retreat center in the north of Galilee at a mountain called Mount Hermon. And over the next 6 weeks, as Jesus is ministering in northern Galilee and in the area of Judea and finally in Jerusalem, he makes his way to another mount, Mount Calvary, Mount Zion in Jerusalem. As I live in the city of my calling, Seattle, I'm keenly aware that many broken and discordant spaces remain. Yet underneath, between, and around, I also see glimpses of hope that God is still listening, loving, and waiting for a people to awaken to a gospel of reconciliation, as Jesus did with the 12 so long ago. The 12 who ran and fled in the face of a Roman crucifixion, but who just 50 days later boldly, though imperfectly, began to live out the Jesus story into the cultures of the world. 50 Days of Promise is their story, and those of many authentic Christ followers who came after. It is a devotional and narrative journey through the Sundays of Easter as we move toward Pentecost, the birth of the church living into the new age that is coming from the heavens. I'm continually amazed at how God interweaves our stories, how time and space and people's lives and even the broken spaces of our lives come together in such a way to give renewal and restoration, healing and love, a future, a possibility. Whether this devotional is used by you personally for private devotions, or perhaps in a Sunday school class, or a midweek setting, a small group discovery class, or perhaps as part of a college study as a support and devotional textbook for a class in theology. It is my hope that all of us together will flesh out Jesus well. Book 1 for Ordinary Time. The truth is, there's nothing ordinary about this season of the church year. It follows the seasons of Advent, Epiphany, and Lent, the Sundays of Easter, which culminates on Pentecost, which is, of course, the birth of the church. And Pentecost pours out into ordinary time, that season in which we live now, the story of God in our own lives and cities and villages, in this postmodern time, as the world awakens to yet another series of twists and turns in the way we think and see each other and our world. In 7 Faces, we explore how this ancient story of the church is breaking into modern America, where it is lived well and not so well. We'll look at some of the new places Jesus is showing up, shaking the church up a bit and preparing a new millennial generation with living out his story. The faces of Jesus that we live and explore come in small daily bites, 30 stories, 57 writings spread out over 63 days of devotions, reflective reading, feeling, thinking, praying. And it is my hope that you and I will live radically this Jesus life in whatever tradition God has placed us.
And the man saw it from the start. I felt it when I let you in. Now peace on earth lives in my heart. Peace on earth lives in my heart. Let there be peace on earth.
God
I'm delighted to introduce to you my newest book on Amazon.com entitled Jerusalem Gates, a narrative and devotional journey through the gates of Jerusalem and into the story of God. Now, Jerusalem has been the epicenter of human interest and intrigue for the last 3,000 years, of sacred writers who've asked all the important questions within her walls. Jerusalem has captured the hearts and imagination of three great faith traditions. Through the gates of Jerusalem, we will be introduced to her first king and priest, Melchizedek. We will watch David as he captures it for himself and renames it the city of David, Jerusalem, and makes it the center of Israel's faith journey, and ultimately of yours and mine, indeed of the world's. We'll watch a poor widow, uncertain of her place in Israeli society, but very certain that she is received by God as a woman, as an Israelite, who can enter the holy place and give what amounts to almost nothing in terms of offering, but in confidence be received. And finally, we will watch Jesus, the Messiah of God, as he loves, seeks, longs for, and finally enters Jerusalem in peace. It is my hope that as you look at an ancient story through the lens of these gates, that the gateways to your own heart will be opened wide to Yeshua, and that you will follow him into the cities of the world and be Christ. And extend the life, passion, suffering, death and resurrection of Jesus Christ to a world that desperately needs to hear anew. To find the devotional books around the liturgical calendar of the church, simply go to Amazon.com and type in my name, Terry Mattson. Mattson is spelled M-A-T-T-S-O-N. And all of my published books will pop immediately, including these around the liturgical calendar. We are a people of the story, of our narratives. Our very sense of being is shaped and indeed created from inside an unfolding drama within time.